Hi, everyone. So it's 10 o'clock, my time anyway, so we'll go ahead and get started, top of the hour. So thank you for coming to the UX group conversation. I'm Christy Linneville, the Director of UX. Happy to have everyone here. Hi, everyone. So it's 10 o'clock, my time anyway, so we'll go ahead and get started, top of the hour. So thank you for coming to the UX group conversation. I'm Christy Linneville, the Director of UX. Happy to have everyone here. Hi, everyone. So it's 10 o'clock, my time anyway, so hopefully I just did something that fixed that. Sorry. Okay. Okay, good deal. This is my first time live streaming. So, okay. So we've got one question already on the list here. So someone asked, Sarah D asked, what is the roadmap for the UX team? Are there any plans to expand UX beyond product? Thinking specifically about UX for about.gitlab.com. So I'll start with the first question, which is around roadmap. So our UX roadmap really aligns with products roadmaps. We do have some UX-led initiatives, but those aren't at a roadmap level. Those are things that we are doing to actually help PMs build out their own roadmaps. We do have some thematic things that we are working on, again, trying to just improve the experience, but we don't have specific roadmaps for those things at this point. But we do align to the product team's roadmaps. The second question was about any plans to expand UX beyond product, and the answer there is UX for about.gitlab.com. We have a great team that works on the marketing website, and I believe that team is being built out also as we speak. So it's a very small team right now. They do a lot of really great work for being such a small team, and they'll have more support going forward. What other questions do folks have?
I'll just verbalize one and then stick it in the doc after. I know that y'all are on a hiring spree. Is there anything that all of us should be looking out for in our networks and among our friends so that we can keep kind of increasing the UX pipeline for y'all?
Yeah, what a great question. Thank you so much for that. So the three roles that we hire for in the UX department are UX research, product design, and technical writing. And for the research team, I think we're pretty much full on that team, which is exciting and wonderful. For product design and technical writing, though, we are still very actively hiring. On the product design side, so we're looking for strong product designers who understand the end-to-end like kind of life cycle of how design thinking happens across a project. So people who have experience conducting user research, at least evaluative user research. So testing their own designs, participating in generative research. So that's, around problem validation, doing UX strategy work, and then also design work in wireframes and prototyping. Ideally, for some of these last positions that we have left, they're some of our most deeply technical subject matter. So we are trying to identify people who come in with some level of subject matter expertise. So for example, we have an intermediate role open for a product designer on the configure team. We'd love to bring on someone who has some level of experience with Kubernetes and container-based deployments. They don't need to be an expert, but it'd be really helpful if they understand what that is and what it means. On the tech writing side, we could absolutely use some help recruiting some great tech writers. We're working really hard on that. And actually, Mike Lewis is on the call, I think. So Mike, if you want to jump in and talk about what you're looking for there.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Christy. Yeah, we're looking for tech writers who are used to working in a similar manner as our GitLab developers and others. So the docs as code workflow, working with static site generators, ideally some sort of DevOps experience. We're looking for both intermediate and senior. So really anyone that you have in your network who is a strong technical writer or has been a tech writer in the past. Oftentimes tech writers are able to take on different kinds of roles. Feel free to ping me or refer them directly or let me know if you have any questions. We also have, it's worth checking the tech writer job description. We have different descriptions for what is intermediate versus senior versus staff. So we have a couple of senior and intermediate open right now. I'll pass it back to Christy.
All right. What other questions does everyone have? This has been great.
Hey, Christy, if you would stop sharing your slides, people would like to see you from the chat. That would be fair.
Okay. Is there something specific you would like for me to share, or just not share at all?
Not share at all unless you want to illustrate something on the slides.
Yeah, I will only if people don't have questions, but I would rather answer people's questions.
Perfect. Thank you.
Hey, Christy, sorry, I'm in the car, so I can't write the question down. I have a question. 10.0 was a significant refresh with the UI. Are there any plans to do a 10.0-esque update in the future?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the short answer is no, we're not planning some big, release it all at once overhaul. But there's a lot of work that's happening on the UI right now. So there's two different kind of tracks of that. One is around just refining what's there. So recently we hired a senior visual designer named Jeremy Elder, and he's been fantastic. He's been going through and really looking at the look and feel of our product. And working on refining that, starting with iconography and some other things. And Jeremy, if you're on the call, if you want to pipe in and talk about the work that you're doing.
Yeah, great question. And so I think one of the things we're really focusing on is just making sure that we're kind of on the same playing field system-wide and taking a really holistic look at the UI, and that involves like some of our foundational documentation and just how we approach some of the aesthetics of the product. And so instead of big bang release, we're really focused more on MVC, starting with some things that have some immediate impact: iconography, illustration, text styles and formatting. And then we'll take a larger look at some larger things like how do we remove some of the containers around the UI, unboxing some things, and some things that will probably be more noticed in I guess a larger burst than a typical MVC. But for right now, it's just really getting our hands around what really needs some immediate emphasis, and then scale it as we add more to the team and making sure everybody's on board. We don't kind of lose anything in the mix. So because of that, just making sure we have good documentation and things to support the team as we grow.
Great question and great answer. All right. Rupert, you want to voice your question?
Sure. So yeah, my question is just related to the SUS score. I was interested to understand how our SUS compares to other DevOps tools that are on the market.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'm going to answer it in two different ways. So one is I'll say that, so our score for Q2 was 73.5. That's roughly average for the industry, and average in general for all types of systems across all industries, across all kinds of devices, is actually closer to 68. So we're doing pretty well there. We have gotten SUS scores for some of our competitors, and then also some of the apps that we consider to be exemplars. And I will say that we are higher than those. So comparing DevOps tools, we're actually doing pretty well on SUS. Now, that does not mean that we don't have work to do or that we can rest on our laurels. We want to make the product more usable. We want to make it more beautiful. So we're still, our goal is to baseline against ourselves and to drive that score up. Did that answer your question? Cynthia, did you want to ask your question?
Yeah, just kind of related to that. What are we kind of doing with the SUS score? Aside from the obvious, like using it as a baseline, Are there specific issues that are being created as a result, or is there anything else specific that we're doing to try to increase that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there are a lot of things that we're doing to try to increase the SUS score. The experience baseline effort, which you can see on the last 3 slides of the deck, is one way that we're trying to do that. So in that effort, what we do is we go back and take a look at some of the most impactful workflows in the product, and we identify those by working with product, because they're really the ones who know what the most impactful workflows are. And then we're doing heuristic reviews of the existing experience against industry standards, industry usability standards. And then working to, so we've created issues from that, and we are actively working to raise those scores. If we can raise those scores on our most important workflows, then the usability of the system overall should come up. So now going back specifically to the SUS, when we run the SUS survey, what that is it's a score of the entire system from end to end. So it is not meant to be actionable per se. It's meant to say, like, here's how you're doing, here's a trend, here's how you can just know what your performance looks like over time. That being said, we do also add some questions into the survey that go beyond just a standard SUS. And so one of those is just a free form, free text. Is there anything else you'd like to tell us about our usability? Some of the other questions we've run have been around mobile usage. So for the free text stuff, there are some things that come in that are very specific, like basically bug reports. When we see things like that, yeah, absolutely. Catherine ran the last SUS and she created issues for those. By and large, though, the feedback that comes in that format, we try to look at as directional. It's not usually directly actionable, but we can see trends coming out of that. And then based on those trends, we know where to go dig in and to learn more through research. For the mobile usage, what's interesting, what we've found, because we ran questions across both the Q1 and the Q2 SUS. In Q1, we asked how frequently, I'm paraphrasing, basically how frequently do you use GitLab on mobile devices? And what we found was, not real frequently. In the Q2 SUS, we asked how important is it for you to be able to use GitLab on mobile devices? And we broke it out by both phones and tablet. And what we found out is it's real important for people to be able to use GitLab on mobile, particularly on phones. And then we got some information about the types of things that they expect to be able to do. Does that answer your question?
Very much so. Thank you.
These are great. Who else has questions?
If no one else has a question, I'll throw in another one. We recently kind of refactored the docs navigation. So I don't know if this is maybe more of a question for Mike, but I think it kind of spans both UX and docs, where I'm wondering if there's any plans to do any UX research around how that's affect people's navigation of docs, and like where we might improve the overall navigation.
Yeah, that's a great question. So 2 things. One is, and Mike, I'll let him chime in on this as well, but he and I agree, the doc site needs usability improvements across the board. We do have an open issue for that. A lot of them are just back to industry standard improvements that we don't even need to research. So some of the ways that we're visually organizing our content hierarchy just aren't effective, and we know it, and we just need to go in and fix it. So that is on the list of priorities. In terms of the recent refactoring of the navigation, that was awesome. I was so thankful for the folks who joined in to do that. I think it made such a big difference. And again, that was one of those things where we didn't necessarily need to research it. We could look at just industry standards for how navigation works and go, our interaction, because that's what we changed there. It was just the interaction patterns. Our interaction patterns were ineffective. That being said, we do think that we also need to do some information architecture work on the docs site. And that is a much bigger, much more complicated effort. And so that's where we're going to need to do some user research on that. And that's something that Mike and I have also been talking about. And Mike, do you want to chime in?
Sure, Christy. Yeah, I think there are a lot of different initiatives at different levels going on. So like starting with your last point, we're working toward a broader information architecture overhaul, or at least doing the research to know what direction to take that. But more actively, we're working on kind of smaller individual projects like reworking the left nav. I think that was really a style change that you guys saw, but now we're also working right now, for example, on reworking what the CI/CD menu looks like specifically. So at a lot of different levels, there are different kinds of initiatives going on to improve the user experience, I think. To Christy's point, we have open issues around UX research that we're going to be doing more of. I think generally the trend has been improving the relationship between tech writing and the various UX roles, and also tech writing and engineering. So that's why you've seen things like the new left nav, and there are other, we have a process now for engaging engineering to get more consistent help with initiatives that are high impact like that. So there are different initiatives going on that kind of all speak to Docs UX, I think.
Thanks, Mike. Okay, Michael, would you like to voice your question?
Sure, thanks. So it's my first week at GitLab. It's nice to meet everybody. And I saw a few mentions about jobs to be done framework and trying to use that to understand how we're performing. And I'd just love to hear more about how we're leveraging that.
Yeah, welcome to GitLab for having
Thank
me.
you.
So the jobs to be done actually ties back to the experience baselines that I was talking about earlier. So the most impactful workflows are the jobs to be done that we know users are using our product to complete. What we as a UX team really try to do is try to abstract back from features and solutions and think about what are our users trying to achieve? What is the job that they need to get done in the course of their work, so that we don't presume that we know the answer. We don't presume that we know the solution. We can really be more creative, diverge in our ideas so that we can research those and then converge on the right solution. So yeah, so those jobs to be done, the way that worked was we identified those, and then those are the things that we're looking at to make specific improvements on. And I will share the screen. Let's see. So when you look at it, what you'll see here on slide 7 are the scores that those workflows got. And there is, if you read about it in the handbook, there's a grading rubric that we've used to say what's an A, what's a B, what's a C, what's a D, what's an F. And so one of our OKRs for this third quarter is to raise the score of 7 of these workflows by 1 grade level. So what you should start to see is some of these workflows moving into a B, which a B is a good score. That means maybe it wasn't absolutely perfect, but it was pretty darn good. I could get my job done. It was fast, it was easy, and I'm pleased with the experience.
Awesome, thank you.
We've got a few more minutes. Anyone else have questions? These have been great.
Hi, this is Jim Riley. I'm a salesperson in DC. Just a question, what's the best way to provide feedback? I think there's some Slack channels, and I had provided feedback on one Slack channel and someone suggested providing on another. Is that a good way to provide feedback, or what's your preferred communication method?
Yeah, it can be, or Slack can be a good way. Primarily if you have a question, the UX channel on Slack is very active, and you should get a response pretty quickly. If you see something that is an obvious UX bug, an issue is honestly the best way to communicate with us, because the product team prioritizes the work that the UX team does, and an issue is a way to get that visibility to that issue so that product also knows that this is something that they might want to consider.
Okay, thank you.
but happy to have you participate in our UX channel on Slack.
All right.
Christy, it's Brandon here. Just a personal question. Like, when you look at great UX, are there any companies or other products that you look at and say, and I say this a little bit because if you're not a UX at history, we're all learning a bunch, but we're going to have a harder time. There's a lot of nuances to it that are easy to miss and that we won't be able to verbalize or understand the way you all do. Is there anything you guys look for inspiration? You're like, oh, that they really get right. And I'm just curious if you and the team look at other products, and if so, if you could share a couple that you guys have used for inspiration.
Yeah, I'm going to answer it slightly differently than how you're asking it, which is
Okay, fair.
Absolutely, we do competitive analysis as part of our design process. And this is kind of stage group specific, right? Because GitLab as a product now covers many different types of tools. So the stage groups are looking at their own sets of products to do that competitive analysis. We're looking at that one to understand just what's happening in the market today, what types of features are there. Are there super common patterns for how these tools are handling a particular workflow or use case, that then it becomes, well, if everyone's doing it that way, then that's probably the expectation for how that will happen, and probably is a good starting place for us to do our own design work. It's also an opportunity for us to look and see where things aren't going so well. And we go, wow, they're doing this and it doesn't make sense, and this is a lot of clicks. Why are they doing that? So that is definitely a part of our process. So you asked just like so like everybody has their own personal sites and tools that they just love. I'm not going to make mine specific to DevOps. I'll say one of the tools that I had a really good experience with lately was better.com. It is a tool for getting a mortgage. And it was so beautifully, like the information architecture was just beautiful. It was so clearly stepped out. I knew exactly where to go to do what I needed to do. When there was an action for me to take, it was so clearly visible within the tool. Their visual content hierarchy was beautiful. My eye knew exactly where to go. I never had to dig around and search for the information that I needed. And those are the types of things that users want across the board. Now, what's interesting for us as a DevOps tool is that's very different from a consumer tool in terms of the amount of information that a user is going to want on a screen. So we really think a lot about data density and supporting our users with making sure that they don't have to scroll a whole lot. They don't have to click too much. Data density in the type of tool that we build is usually much more than in a consumer tool. But those basic foundational principles are the same.
Thank you.
That's a fun question. Let's see. Patrick, do you want to voice your question?
Yeah. So you mentioned earlier in responding to Cynthia's question that there was emergent mobile use that was becoming more important from Q1 to Q2. What are you seeing as common use cases for mobile workflows?
Yeah, so we did get some really good feedback on that off the top of my head. I'm not remembering exactly what they are. I'm hoping that maybe Catherine is on the call because she did some, yes, she is. Catherine, do you remember what those were?
Sure. Yeah. Those include things like commenting on issues, creating an issue, monitoring pipelines was something that came up. I get the sense that I'm not sure to what extent they're currently doing code review, but code review did come up as something they would like to do on mobile as well. So that, I guess I'd say mainly in the planning, create, and CI/CD areas is what I saw mostly, but there could be other use cases as well.
As a follow-up, I assume that was looking at GitLab.com on a mobile device and not something like GitFox or LabCode or any of the native apps.
Yeah, I'd presume GitLab.com, but I'll have to check into that. That's a good question.
Yeah, I'd be curious because like especially things like the pipeline status, like that might be interesting through like I haven't used, full transparency, I haven't used GitFox or Git or LabCode. But yeah, I can see like pipeline status as a push notification on my phone could be kind of a cool experience.
Yeah, if you're interested in the details of what we've learned, that's available. Anyone is welcome to view the raw data. The way that we asked the question, like Catherine, I suspect that people were focused on GitLab.com, but happy to share that data with anyone who wants to see it. Okay, we're at time. Thank you, everyone. This has been great. Have a wonderful day.